He taps the gate remote and smiles while my shoes stay outside land he doesn't own. The estate gate stands between us at the bottom of a long driveway. Bright morning light flattening every excuse, security posted on either side with radios clipped high. I am here, he is here. Cameras watch, and my immediate goal is to leave without giving him the spectacle he wants. The remote is matte black in his hand, a small object with a wide radius, and when it clicks, the sound carries a polite violence that lands before the metal moves. "Ma'am, you'll need to step back," one guard says, eyes forward. "I'm already back," I answer, voice level. Victor shifts his weight like he's settling into a chair he owns, like comfort is transferable by proximity. "We're done here," he says. "You can go." I look past him to the house that performs certainty with stone and glass, and I note the time blinking on the gate console, 9:14 a.m., because clocks make liars impatient. "Say it again," I say quiet. "Say what he asks. Your title is owner, not host." He laughs once, a social laugh, and raises the remote. "Your badge is blue," he tells the guard. "Not me. Mine is cleared. Don't pretend." The guard nods because nodding is the job, and the remote clicks again, and the gate starts its slow, deliberate slide steel, whispering along track like a rule being recited. "This isn't necessary," I say. "It is," Victor replies. "You don't live here." A phone lifts somewhere to my left. A lens catches the moment when the gate crosses the line where my foot could be, and I step back because I choose timing over stubbornness. "You're trespassing," he adds. Voice calm, and I register the word because it's a costume word tailored to fit whoever wears it. "Read the clause out loud," I tell him. "The room should hear it." "There is no room," he says, smiling wider. "That's the point." The gate finishes closing, the remote rests, and I turn because leaving on my feet keeps the next move intact. The guard clears his throat. "Ma'am," he says again, "we'll walk you to the sidewalk." "No," I say. "I know where the sidewalk is." I step back another pace, then another, counting the pavers, because counting steadies the hand that wants to do something loud. Victor watches like an audience member who thinks the show is over. "You should have thought about this earlier," he says. "Thought about what I ask." "Belonging," he answers. And for the first time I see the mistake he's making, which is confusing access with ownership and silence with surrender. "Keep smiling," I say. "Your email header is on the screen." He frowns. "What screen?" "Exactly," I reply, and the guard shifts uncomfortable with words he can't process into procedure. The driveway is long, and walking, it is a kind of exposure because it takes time, and time attracts witnesses. A car idles, a delivery van waits, and the sun turns everything honest. "You don't get to threaten me," Victor calls after me. "I'm not," I say. "I'm pacing. This is my property," he insists louder now. At 9:14, I answer, voices carry. He stops talking because stopping feels safer than continuing when a crowd might form, and that pause tells me he believes power is something you guard with quiet. A woman with a clipboard appears near the side gate, hesitates, then pretends to check a latch. She looks at me and looks away, which is a choice. "Escort complete," the guard says into his radio, because narrating an action gives it weight. "Good," Victor says. "Make sure she doesn't come back." "Define back," I ask, and he waves the remote in a small circle, a magician's flourish without the rabbit. "Past the line," he says. "That line," I say, pointing to the seam where asphalt meets stone. "Yes," he answers, relieved. "That one." The relief matters because it means he believes lines are self-enforcing. "You signed the log at 9:08, I tell the guard, watching Victor's face. The camera says otherwise. "What log?" Victor snaps. "There's no log." "There's always a log," I say, and the guard's eyes flick to the booth because truth has gravity even when you don't want it. The remote clicks in Victor's palm again, a nervous tick now, and the gate hums like it wants to reopen, but doesn't because machines wait for clearer instructions. The gate hums between us, a borrowed authority insisting the threshold belongs to the loudest voice. Victor steps closer to the bars. "You're embarrassing yourself," he says. "In front of my staff." "They were always your staff," I answer. "That was the deal." "Deal," he repeats too fast. "We never had a deal." "We had quiet," I say. "You mistook it for consent." The delivery van driver clears his throat. A phone is up again. The guard glances at the console, then at Victor because procedure is a ladder and someone has kicked out a rung. "Ma'am," the guard says softer. "Please." "I'm going," I reply. "I said I would." Victor lifts the remote like a gavel. "Don't come back," he says. "For the crowd now, this ends today. Everything ends today." I say, not looking at him, because last looks are gifts. I reach the sidewalk and stop because stopping is allowed, because public space belongs to everyone, and because the sun doesn't choose sides. I turn back once, measure the distance, memorize the angle of the bars, the way the house reflects sky, like it's practicing innocence. "Say it clearly," I tell him, so the camera can hear. "You're not welcome," Victor says, and there it is, the sentence he thinks seals it. I nod, because nodding keeps the next thing sharp. The remote clicks again, and the gate stays shut, while the clock keeps running. In the weeks before the gate learned my name, the estate felt permissive in the way places do when they assume you'll never test the edges. I moved through corridors with a security wristband cinched loose on my arm, the plastic catching light whenever I reached for a glass or brushed past a doorframe, and my immediate goal back then was modest arrive, be present, leave without friction. The wristband was pale gray with a small alphanumeric suffix stamped near the clasp, the kind of thing that says temporary without saying expendable. "You're good," a guard had told me once at 7:22 p.m., tapping the band with a knuckle. "Enjoy." I enjoyed the quiet more than the rooms. Victor liked quiet too, or said he did, which meant he liked not being contradicted. "We keep things simple," he'd said at the kitchen island, palms flat on stone. "No scenes." "I don't do scenes," I answered. "Then we'll get along," he replied, smiling like he'd solved something. The staff mirrored that tone, polite, efficient eyes sliding away from questions, and I learned their rhythms, the hum of the service elevator at 8:05, the clink of glassware just before dusk, the way radios crackled softly at shift change. "You're on the list," a woman at the side entrance had said one afternoon, checking a tablet. "I know," I told her. "I've been on it all week." "Lists change," she said, apologetic, and waved me through anyway. That was the tell I missed then, the kindness that carries a warning. Victor liked to narrate authority like a weather report. "Security's tightening," he'd say. "It's nothing personal. It never is," I'd reply, and we'd leave it there because leaving it there kept the air clear. The first time I noticed the line wasn't when someone stopped me, but when the gate shadow cut the driveway at an odd angle one late afternoon, a clean stripe of dark that didn't belong to the sun's position. I remember thinking the light looked misfiled. It was a small thing, the kind you register without attaching meaning, and I stepped over it without comment because shadows don't usually argue. "We're closing the north wing," Victor said later, glancing at his watch, 6:41 p.m., as if time were a co-signer. "For maintenance. Since when I asked." Since now, he answered, and the wristband brushed the counter as I nodded. "Okay," I said. "Just checking." "Don't check," he told me lightly. Trust. Trust had become a tool by then, handed out with conditions. At a dinner the following week, the band was scanned twice at the ballroom door. "Sorry," the guard said, eyes flicking to a supervisor. "New protocol." "Is there a problem?" Victor asked from inside, voice carrying. "No problem," the guard replied. "Just verifying." "She's with me," Victor said, and the word "with" did more work than any document. I stepped in and the music resumed, but I felt the delay like a pebble in a shoe. "Everything okay?" Victor asked, handing me a drink. "Fine," I said. "They're careful. They should be," he replied, pleased. Carefulness multiplied. A breakfast invitation shifted to brunch without explanation. A room I used for calls was suddenly reserved. "We'll set you up elsewhere," an assistant offered at 9:03 a.m., gesturing toward a smaller space with no windows. "It's temporary. Everything is," I said. Victor began using words like perimeter and clearance, testing them for weight. "You know how it is," he said one night, shrugging. "People assume access means ownership." "Do they?" I asked. All the time he said and laughed. "Say it again." I told him, thinking I'd misheard. "Assume access means ownership," he repeated. "That's human nature." Maybe I said and let it go because the wristband was still warm against my skin, and warmth masquerades as safety. The staff noticed the changes too, though they didn't name them. "Can I see your band?" a guard asked at 8:17 p.m. by the terrace doors. "It's visible," I replied, lifting my arm. "I need to scan it," he said. "Policy." "Which policy?" I asked. He glanced at Victor across the room. "The new one," he said. Victor raised his glass without looking at me. "Do it," he told the guard. The scanner beeped once, then again. "You're clear," the guard said, relief audible. "Thank you," I answered, because politeness is armor. I told myself it was noise. That power rearranges itself and calls the sound progress. That my role was unchanged, even if the choreography was. "You're imagining things," Victor said when I finally named the pattern at 10:02 p.m., standing by the fireplace. "I'm not," I replied. "I'm noticing." Noticing what he asked. "That the doors close earlier," I said. "That people hesitate. They're busy," he said. "Don't personalize logistics." "Logistics are personal," I told him. "They decide who waits." He sighed. "You're sensitive." "I'm precise," I said, and he smiled like I'd proven his point. The wristband warmed against my skin while the gate's shadow learned my footsteps. The next morning, the band felt tighter, though it hadn't changed. Pressure does that, convinces you the circle is shrinking. At 7:58 a.m., an assistant met me near the study. "He asked me to tell you," she began. "Who did I ask?" "Victor," she said. "He needs the room." "For how long?" I asked. "Just today," she replied, eyes down. "I'll wait," I said, stepping aside. Victor passed a moment later, phone to ear. "I said I needed it," he told the assistant. "She's fine." "I am," I said. He covered the phone. "We'll talk later," he said, which meant never unless I insisted. "Later becomes precedent," I answered. He smiled again. "Don't be dramatic." "Don't be vague," I replied. The wristband came off that afternoon without ceremony. I was standing by the side entrance at 4:36 p.m. when a guard approached, hands open. "We're updating credentials," he said. "I'll need that." "Now?" I asked. "Now," he replied, apologetic but firm. "Temporary?" I asked. "Yes," he said too quickly. "How temporary?" "I don't have a time," he admitted. "That's okay," I said, unclipping the band. It left a pale ring on my arm, a reminder that pressure can mark without breaking skin. Victor watched from a distance, unreadable. "This is routine," he called. "Of course," I answered, because routine is what you call a decision when you don't want to own it. I walked out unescorted, the sun low, the driveway long. I paused at the place where the shadow had been days before and noticed it wasn't there now. Shadows move, I told myself. Lines don't. The band slipped free, and the threshold decided who would be tested next. By the time I decided to look for paper, not reassurance, the estate had learned to sound neutral when it meant no. I went back in the afternoon under the pretense of collecting a charger I'd left in the study. My goal, simple and time-bound, confirm whether my exclusion was improvisation or instruction, then leave before anyone felt cornered. The security desk sat just inside the service corridor, fluorescent and functional, and the access log clipboard lay where it always did, angled like it wanted to be noticed. Nina was there, shoulders tight, fingers tapping the pen's clip against the board. "I'm just grabbing my charger," I said. "You'll need an escort," she replied. "It'll take a minute." The clock on the wall clicked to 2:11 p.m., the sound too loud for a hallway. "A minute is fine," I said, stepping closer to the desk. "Can I sign out?" She blinked. "Sign out?" "If I'm still in," I said. "Procedure." She hesitated, then slid the clipboard an inch toward herself. "We don't usually say it again," I said gently. "We don't usually what?" She swallowed. "We don't usually log guests." "Guests," I repeated. "Read the label out loud." She looked at the top of the page. "Authorized entrance," she said, barely audible. "Thank you," I replied and reached for the pen. "What time?" she asked. "Now," I said. "If now exists." She glanced down the corridor. "I shouldn't," she said. "It's fine," I told her. "I'll be quick." The paper smelled like toner and lemon cleaner, a practical scent. I scanned the column heading's time badge suffix location and felt my chest settle, because columns don't lie. people do. "What are you looking for?" Nina asked. "My name," I said, "or its absence." "It's not personal," she said too fast. "I didn't say it was." I answered and turned the page. There it was, neat block letters, my name aligned with a badge suffix that wasn't mine. The time read 1:47 p.m., the location stamped North Wing. I had been at lunch across town at 1:47. I had the receipt, the waitress's nod, the sun on my face. "This isn't me," I said. Nina leaned in. "It says, inactive," she whispered. "Inactive when I asked." She pointed. "As of 1:32. "Who marked it?" I asked. "I don't know," she said. "It came down." "From where up?" she said, meaning Victor, without naming him. Footsteps sounded at the corridor's end. Nina straightened. "You need to go," she murmured. "Give me 1 minute," I said, and lifted the clipboard. "You can't," she began. "Watch me," I replied, and wrote my initials in the margin because margins are where truths hide when headers are hostile. "You're risking your job," she said. "No," I answered. "I'm reducing your uncertainty." A guard appeared, hand on radio. "Everything okay?" he asked. "Fine," Nina said. "She's signing out." "Am I asked, and smiled to keep it from escalating. "Read the line," I told him. He squinted. "It says inactive," he said. At 1:32, I added. "But she's here," he said. "Now," I replied. "Clocks move." He frowned. "I need to call this in." "Please do," I said. "Use my name." He pressed the button. "Control." "I have a discrepancy," he said. "Timestamp doesn't match presence." "What's the badge?" a voice crackled. He checked the sheet. "Suffix ends with K9, he said. "That's not hers," Nina blurted, then bit her lip. The guard looked between us. "Whose is it?" he asked. "Say it again." I told him. "Whose badge is that?" "It belongs to Nina." Stopped. "It belongs to Victor's assistant," she said finally. Silence followed, thick and useful. "That's not possible," the voice said. "He doesn't use the North Wing." "Read the location," I said. "North Wing," the guard confirmed. At 1:47, the voice repeated, "Stand by." Victor arrived like weather unannounced but expected. "What's going on?" he asked, eyes already on the clipboard. "A clerical error," Nina said. "We're fixing it." "There is no error," Victor said, calm. "She's not authorized." "Then why is my name here?" I asked, turning the board so he could see. "Inactive," he said, "as of earlier." "Earlier than lunch," I replied. "Earlier than me." He smiled thinly. "You're reading it wrong." "Read it out loud," I said. "The room should hear it." He sighed. "You don't get to interrogate my staff." "I'm not," I said. "I'm reading." He tapped the board with one finger. "You signed a visitor agreement," he said. "Visitors can be deactivated." "Your badge is blue." I told the guard, keeping my voice level. "Mine was gray." "Don't pretend they're interchangeable." The guard stiffened. "Sir," he said to Victor, "Control wants clarification." Victor waved him off. "I'll handle it." "At what time?" I asked. "Now," Victor said. 2:19. "Good," I replied. "Then write it." He frowned. "Write what?" "The instruction," I said. "Deactivate me in real time." "I don't need to," he said. "It's already done." "Then your log is lying," I answered, and the word landed because it named the problem without accusing the person. The clipboard tilted in my hands as the timestamp contradicted the man who claimed to control it. Victor's jaw tightened. "Give that back," he said. "No," I replied. "I'm leaving with it." "You can't remove property," he snapped. "Paper isn't property," I said. "Information is." Nina's eyes flicked to the camera at the corridor's corner. "Please," she whispered. "You'll get us all in trouble." "Trouble already happened," I told her. "I'm just locating it." The guard's radio chirped. "Control says log entries auto-populate," the voice said. "Manual overrides require authorization." "Whose?" I asked. "Victor Hale," the voice replied, and there it was, a line drawn by sound. Victor exhaled. "You're making a scene," he said. "No," I answered. "I'm preventing one. Return the clipboard," he ordered. "Say it again," I said softly. "Say you authorized a change at 1:32. He stared at me. "You're not welcome here," he said. At 2:21, I replied, "On record." I handed the clipboard back to Nina, who took it like a hot plate. Make a copy, I told her, for compliance. I can't, she said. I can, the guard said, surprising himself. We keep scans. Victor shot him a look. Do you? Victor asked. Yes, the guard said, and his voice didn't waver because procedure is a shield. Do it, Victor snapped, then caught himself. No, he corrected. Don't. Too late, the guard said. It autosaves. The clock clicked to 2:22 p.m. I'm leaving, I said. Escort. Yes, the guard replied. I'll walk you. Victor followed us to the threshold. This ends, he said. Today. Everything does. I answered and stepped into the corridor where the light flattened excuses again. Outside, the air felt different, like it does when a pattern breaks. I didn't look back because the evidence didn't need my attention anymore. It knew where it belonged. The log closed behind me, carrying a time that refused to obey his voice. The denial happened again on a Saturday, which mattered because Saturdays draw witnesses the way lights draw insects. The estate was hosting a charity brunch, cars stacking along the road, valets in pressed shirts guiding hands and doors, and my goal was narrow and procedural: enter, sit quietly, leave, without interrupting anyone's performance of goodwill. I arrived just before noon, the air bright enough to bleach motives, and the time-stamped CCTV still would later show my shoes aligned with the gate seam at 11:56 a.m. A clean image with a ref code stamped in the corner and the location tagged front drive. The guard on duty lifted a hand. Hold, he said. Why, I asked. Clearance, he replied, eyes flicking to his earpiece. Whose, I asked. Stand by, he said, which is what people say when instructions are coming from somewhere they don't want to name. The gate stood open behind him, a promise made to everyone else. A woman in linen laughed as she passed. A phone went up. Someone whispered my name or a version of it. I'm on the list, I said, because it was true in more ways than one. Read it, he replied, tapping the tablet. Out loud, I added. He hesitated. I can't. Then you can't deny me, I said. He pressed his radio. Control. I have a hold at the gate, he said. Badge status unclear. The clock on the booth ticked to 11:57, and time has a way of sharpening choices. Victor appeared from the walkway, blazer open smile calibrated for donors. There's a misunderstanding, he said loud enough for the nearest circle to hear. She's not expected. Say it again, I told him. Say not expected. You're not on the guest list, he said, and the list appeared like a talisman in his hand, folded once, then again, the object doing work before words could catch up. Read the name above mine, I said. The room should hear it. This isn't the time, he said. It's exactly the time, I replied, and a camera lens glinted, because people sense a threshold when it's about to move. Your badge is blue, I told the guard softly. Mine isn't visible. Don't pretend those rules apply equally. The guard swallowed. Sir, he said to Victor. Control wants confirmation. Victor waved him off. I'm confirming now, he said, and turned to me. Please step back. Define back, I asked. He gestured toward the road. Past the line, he said, pointing to the seam. That line, I said, mirroring him. Yes, he answered, relieved. That one. The gate motor hummed a mechanical courtesy, and the arm began to lower. Someone murmured. A woman stopped mid-step. We're all waiting? Victor announced, smiling wider. Let's keep things moving. Read the clause out loud, I said. The room should hear it. Security, he snapped. And the word did what it always does in public. It recruited obedience. The CCTV still would later show my heel lifting as the arm crossed the seam, the timestamp blinking 11:58 a.m., ref code visible generic location, tagged a quiet proof that didn't care who was smiling. The guard raised his hand again. Ma'am, he said, voice careful, I need you to step back. I am stepping back, I replied, taking one pace, then stopping, because stopping is allowed on public pavement. This is unnecessary, Victor said. It's policy, the guard answered, surprising himself. Victor shot him a look. I'm handling it, Victor said. You're escalating, I told Victor. No, he replied. I'm preventing disruption. By creating it, I said, and the contradiction hung there because contradictions like light. Keep smiling, I added. Your email header is on the screen. He frowned. What screen? The one everyone's holding, I said, nodding toward the phones. A donor cleared his throat. Is there a problem, he asked. No problem, Victor said. Private matter. In public, I replied. The arm finished lowering. The gate closed. Applause didn't come. Silence did. And silence is a verdict people don't know how to reverse. The camera caught his smile freezing as the gate closed, a public lie pinned by a private machine. Victor leaned closer to the bars. You're trespassing, he said, voice pitched for authority. At 11:58, I answered words. Carrie, leave, he said. I am, I replied. Document it. The guard's radio chirped. Control confirms denial, a voice said. Log it. Log what the guard asked. Denial at front drive. The voice replied. Time. 11:58, the guard said, and the number felt heavier than it should have, because it would have to match something later. Victor turned back to the crowd. We apologize for the delay, he announced. Thank you for your patience. A woman laughed brittle. Someone else stepped aside to avoid the lens. Escort complete, the guard asked his radio. Affirmative, the voice replied. I don't need an escort, I said. I know where the sidewalk is. Victor watched me walk, jaw tight, now smile gone. This ends, he called after me. Today. Everything ends, I replied, not turning because last looks give oxygen to the wrong fire. At the sidewalk, I stopped and faced the gate, because public space is a stage too. Say it clearly, I said, projecting just enough, so the camera can hear. You're not welcome, Victor said, louder than necessary. At 11:58, I answered, and the repetition mattered because timestamps anchor memory. A valet shifted, a phone lowered, another rose. We'll call the police, Victor said, reaching for a phone he didn't dial. Read the log, I told him. Out loud. Enough, he snapped. Go. I nodded and took one step back, then another, because movement calms a crowd. The gate stayed shut, obedient to the last instruction it understood. Later, when I saw the still, the ref code crisped the location tag plain, the time blinking without drama, I understood why machines make better witnesses than people. They don't flinch. They don't smile for donors. They don't confuse access with ownership. The gate shut at 11:58, and the crowd learned who controlled the threshold. I didn't go back to the estate after Saturday. I went to a building that smells like paper and old decisions where the lights are honest and the doors close without ceremony. The conference room was narrow, the table scarred, and my immediate goal was to convert what felt personal into something procedural, because procedure doesn't flinch. Marianne arrived at 3:18 p.m. with a sealed legal envelope tucked under her arm, the seal unbroken, the paper thick enough to sound like certainty when it moved. Before we open this, she said, setting it down between us, we need to agree on timing. Say it again, I replied. Timing decides leverage, she said, and leverage decides whether authority enters quietly or loudly. I nodded because I'd learned the difference the hard way. What's inside? I asked. A draft notice, she said. Not served, not filed, just ready. Ready for what I asked. For when you stop being treated like a guest, she answered. The clock on the wall ticked to 3:19, and clocks when they're visible keep everyone honest. Read the header, I said. Out loud. Property boundary clarification, she read. Voice level. Generic location, I asked. County Record Office, she said. Ref code MC7Q, she replied, tapping the corner. Time prepared at 2:42 p.m. Good, I said. We keep it boring. She smiled once thin. Boring wins. We talked through what not to do first. No confrontation, she said. No letters sent in anger. No scenes, I said, hearing Victor's voice and discarding it. Correct, she replied. Scenes belong to him until they don't. She slid the envelope closer but didn't open it. This document assumes cooperation, she said. It invites compliance. From whom I asked. From whoever believes authority lives in the building, she said. Not the ground. I watched the seal catch the light and thought about how often paper waits for permission. If we serve it now, she continued, he escalates, calls someone, creates noise. And if we don't, I asked. He keeps smiling, she said, and keeps making logs lie. I pictured the clipboard tilting in my hands, the timestamp refusing to obey a voice. "What's the cost of waiting?" I asked. "Internal," she said. "You'll want it to be over." "I can manage that," I replied. "External." "He'll make another move," she said. "He always does." "Good," I said. "We'll be ready." She flipped open her notebook, the pages already flagged. "We need corroboration that looks accidental," she said. "Nothing dramatic." "What counts?" I asked. "A map," she said. "An email header. A log that refuses to align." "And the envelope?" I asked. "Stays sealed," she said. "It does its work by existing." "Say it again," I told her. "By existing," she repeated. "It reminds him the ground answers to paper, not posture." I leaned back and felt the pressure that had been building behind my eyes finally ease into a plan. "He'll say I'm emotional," I said. "He already has," she replied. "We won't correct him." "Why not?" "Because he'll overcorrect himself," she said. "People who perform authority hate silence." The room hummed softly. HVAC steady, no witnesses to impress. "When does authority enter?" I asked. "After public proof," she said. "Never before." "And if he calls first?" I asked. "He can't," she replied. "There's nothing to answer yet." She tapped the envelope. "This is a rehearsal, not an opening night." We ran through the language like a drill. No dates, she said. Only times. No amounts I added. Only references. Generic locations, she said. Always. And no service, I said. "Not yet." She nodded. "You're learning." "I'm remembering," I replied. She slid the envelope back into her bag. "I'll keep this," she said. "It's safer." "Safer from what?" "From being used," she said. "By you." "I won't," I said. "I know," she replied. "That's why I will." The honesty steadied me more than reassurance would have. "One more thing," she added. "He'll try to frame this as a misunderstanding." "It is," I said. "About who misunderstands whom?" She smiled. "Exactly." As I stood to leave, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. No greeting, just a line, "Don't come back." I showed it to Marianne. "Screenshot," she said, then paused. "No," she corrected. "Later." "Why later?" I asked. "Because context," she said. "Because we let him stack his own contradictions." "He thinks speed wins," I said. "He thinks urgency creates truth," she replied. "We'll let him think that." The hallway outside felt longer than before, as if the building had grown while I sat. At 3:34 p.m., the elevator doors opened and I stepped in alone, the mirror catching my face without commentary. I thought about the envelope again, about how seals create a promise of order, and about how waiting can be an action when it's deliberate. My phone buzzed again, this time a voicemail icon. I didn't play it. Later I told the empty car, and the word felt like a tool. At home I set a notebook on the kitchen table and wrote times down the margin, nothing else. 11, 58, 2, 11, 3, 18. The list looked harmless until you knew what it connected. The sealed legal envelope sat in my mind like a held breath doing work by not being released. The envelope stayed sealed, and the law learned to wait with me. Night fell without incident, which was its own kind of tension. I slept lightly and woke early because patience doesn't mean stillness. In the morning, the unknown number called again at 7:06 a.m. I let it ring. Authority hates unanswered calls. It makes people talk to fill the space. The seal held, and his urgency began to leak through the silence. The map arrived folded, not rolled, which told me it was meant to be handled quietly. Marianne slid the printed parcel map across the table at 9:07 a.m., the paper creasing where someone had tried to make it smaller than it was. My immediate goal was confirmation without celebration. The truth works best when it isn't announced. "This is the county's simplified overlay," she said. "Generic enough to travel. Read the legend," I replied. Out loud. "Parcel boundary," she read. "Structure footprint. Easement." "Time," I asked. "Pulled at 8:52, she said. "Ref code PL3M." The clock on the wall ticked, and the sound settled me. Before we look, she added, "We agree what it means. It means lines don't move," I said. "People do." She nodded and unfolded the page. The house appeared first a neat block shaded lightly, the driveway a thin ribbon. Then the boundary line thicker darker slicing where no one expected it to. The line cut under the front steps and through the curve of the drive like it had always been there, waiting for someone to stop assuming. "Say it again," I told her. "The structure crosses the boundary," she said. "By a lot." "How much?" I asked. "Enough," she replied. "Enough to matter." I leaned in, tracing the ink with my finger without touching it because touching can feel like ownership, and I didn't want to confuse myself. "This contradicts his claim," I said. "It contradicts his posture," she corrected. "Claims don't require evidence. Posture does." The map did something I hadn't expected. It quieted me. The agitation that had hummed since the gate closed finally found a place to rest. "We need corroboration," I said. "This alone invites argument." "Agreed," she replied. "We bind it to something he already trusts." "What does he trust?" I asked. She smiled thinly. "Email headers," she said. "And logs." I thought of the clipboard, the time that refused to bend. "We have logs," I said. "We will," she replied. "But first we let this sit." "Why?" "Because when you rush the truth," she said, "you give the other side time to lie creatively." She folded the map again, slower this time. "Notice the driveway," she added, "where the gate sits." "On my side," I said. "Exactly. We went quiet the way you do when you realize the floor has shifted but hasn't cracked. Authority needs an entry point," Marianne said. "We seed it without inviting it." "How?" I asked. "By mentioning," she replied. "Not serving." "Mention to whom?" "To operations," she said. "Someone who manages space." "Luis," I said, thinking of the head of security who liked procedures more than people. "Luis," she agreed. "He'll want to reconcile his logs with reality." "And if he doesn't?" "He will," she said. "He likes not being wrong." The phone on the table vibrated at 9:14. Unknown number again. I let it buzz. "He's speeding up," Marianne observed. "He thinks momentum is control." "We let him," I said. She slid the map back to me. "Keep this," she said, "but don't show it yet." "Why me?" I asked. "Because you're the one he underestimates," she replied. "Maps do better in underestimated hands." I left with the paper tucked inside a plain folder. No markings, no drama. Outside, the morning had that clean edge that makes you feel watched, even when you aren't. At 9:28, my phone rang again. I answered this time because timing matters. "You need to stop." Victor said no greeting. "Stop what?" I asked. "Creating confusion," he said. "You're making my staff nervous." They were nervous before I replied. "I'm just naming it." "You don't have standing," he said. "That's your opinion," I answered. "It's fact," he snapped. "Say it again," I said. "Say fact." He exhaled. "You're not on the deed," he said. "I've seen it." "Which deed?" I asked. "The one that matters," he said. "Read the ref code," I told him. Out loud. Silence stretched. "You're crossing a line," he said finally. "Lines are printed," I replied. "Crossings are visible." He hung up. I met Luis that afternoon in a neutral place, a coffee shop that smelled like burnt beans and patience. He arrived at 2:04 p.m., security posture, relaxed eyes alert. "You wanted to talk," he said. "About logs," I replied. "And maps." "Maps," he asked. "Say it again," I said. "Maps." He frowned. "What about them?" I slid the printed parcel map halfway out of the folder, not enough to read, enough to recognize. "We have a discrepancy," I said, "between where your gate operates and where your authority applies." He leaned in, then back. "I can't look at that," he said. "You can," I replied. "You just can't act on it yet." "Why show me?" he asked. "Because when this goes public," I said, "you'll want to say you noticed first." He sipped his coffee, thinking. "If that line is where I think it is," he said slowly, "my incident logs are wrong." "Your logs reflect instructions," I replied. "Not geography. We reconcile logs with facts," he said. "Eventually." "Start now," I said. Quietly. He nodded once. "Send me the ref code," he said. "PL3M," I replied. "And the time you pulled it," he added. 8:52, I said. Good, he said. I'll check something. On the walk back, the city felt arranged differently, as if thresholds had been redrawn without asking permission. At 4:17, a message came from Luis, reviewing historical gate placements. No promises. That was enough. At 4:32, another from Victor, last warning. I didn't reply. Marianne called at 4:40. He called me, she said. Asked if I represented you. What did you say I asked? I said I don't answer hypotheticals, she replied. Good, I said. He's trying to pull authority forward, she added. Let him pull. We hung up and I laid the map on my kitchen table, flattening it carefully. The boundary line looked calmer there, less confrontational, like it had been waiting for the right surface. The boundary line returned, now traced in ink and silence. I thought about the gate closing at 11:58, about how machines obey instructions until someone checks the premises. At 6:03, the unknown number called again. I let it ring to voicemail. The message arrived seconds later. We can resolve this privately, Victor said, voice tight. Call me. I didn't. At 7:15, Louise sent another message. Gate motor installed beyond parcel line. Logs inconsistent. Need guidance. I stared at the words until they settled. Not yet, I typed back. Stand by. Authority, when it's honest, waits for proof. When it's not, it rushes. The map stayed open, and the gate learned it had been standing on borrowed ground. I chose a neutral room with bad acoustics on purpose, the kind of place where voices flatten and nobody can pretend warmth meant consent. The cafe's back alcove smelled like burnt espresso and lemon cleaner, and my immediate goal was narrow. Let Victor talk long enough to record himself into a corner without making him feel hunted. The audio recorder sat face down on the table between the sugar caddy and a chipped saucer red light off a small patient object that doesn't care who believes what. You wanted to meet Victor, said, sliding into the chair across from me at 10:36 a.m., coat still on. I wanted clarity, I replied. Say it again, he said, amused. Clarity, I repeated. About boundaries. There are none, he said. Between us. Read the word out loud, I said. Boundaries. He waved it off. Don't be dramatic. Don't be vague, I replied. The server hovered. Coffee, she asked. Black Victor said. Water, I said. She nodded and left, and the space felt smaller for having been acknowledged. Victor leaned forward. We can end this, he said. Privately. How I asked. You stop showing up, he said. I stop escalating. Escalating what I asked. Your confusion, he replied. My confusion has timestamps, I said. Yours has posture. He smiled like he'd won something. You don't have standing, he said. I do, I answered. You don't, he repeated. Say it again, I said softly. You don't, he said louder. I reached for the recorder and turned it on, the red light blooming at 10:38, the time of day stamp appearing on its tiny screen like a promise. For accuracy, I said. He stiffened. Turn that off, he said. Why, I asked. Because this is private, he replied. At 10:38, I said privacy is a choice. You're crossing a line, he said. Lines are printed, I replied. Crossings are audible. He took a breath and tried another angle. You were a guest, he said. Guests leave. Read the log, I said. Out loud. There is no log, he snapped. Say it again, I said. There is no log. At 10:39, I replied, and he flinched because numbers irritate improvisation. Look, he said, lowering his voice, I have donors' staff reputations. You don't want to be the reason any of that gets messy. I don't want to be the reason I said. I want to be the record. The server returned with coffee and water, set them down, and retreated, eyes sliding away because witnesses always choose sides by leaving. Victor sipped, winced. You know what this is, he said. A misunderstanding, between whose assumptions I asked. Between yours and reality, he replied. Define reality, I said. He gestured vaguely. What people see. People saw the gate close at 11:58, I said. People see what they're told, he replied. Machines see what happens, I said, and tapped the recorder. He glanced at it, then back to me. You're not on the deed, he said. Which one? I asked. The one that matters, he said. Read the rough code, I replied. Silence stretched. You're fishing, he said. I'm listening, I replied. He leaned back and crossed his arms, defensive now. Fine, he said. Let's talk facts. Good, I said. State 1. You don't own anything here, he said. Say it again, I said. You don't own the land. He said slower. At 10:41, I replied. Keep going. The gate, the driveway, the house, he said. All mine. All, I echoed. Every inch, he repeated, and the recorder's red light stayed steady, patient. Who authorized the gate placement? I asked. I did, he said. When years ago, he replied. Time, I asked. I don't remember, he snapped. Then we'll use logs, I said. There are no logs, he said again. You're repeating yourself, I replied. That's what happens when stories thin. He stood abruptly. This is over, he said. I'm done talking. Sit, I said, not raising my voice. Say it again, he said, incredulous. Sit, I repeated. Your coffee's still hot. He hesitated, then sat, because leaving feels like losing when someone else is calm. What do you want? He asked. Accuracy, I said, and for you to hear yourself. I know what I said, he replied. Good, I said. Then you won't mind hearing it back. The recorder's red light held steady as he claimed every inch, every time, every right. He noticed the emphasis and frowned. You're baiting me, he said. I'm documenting, I replied. There's a difference. You can't use that, he said. Why not? Because I didn't consent, he replied. At 10:43, I said, consent followed conversation. He laughed, sharp. You think this matters? He asked. It will, I said. To whom? To the people who read logs, I replied. And maps. He froze. Maps, he said. Say it again, I replied. Maps. You don't have a map, he said. You don't, I corrected. Which is the problem. He stood again. This ends today, he said. Everything does, I replied and reached to stop the recorder at 10:44. The file autosaving with a short code on the screen and the generic location tag the device assigns when you don't rename things. He stared at the recorder like it had betrayed him. You're making an enemy, he said. I'm making a record, I replied. Enemies require emotion. He scoffed and walked out, coat swinging the door, slapping shut hard enough to turn heads in the front room. A man glanced over, then away because curiosity has limits when consequences appear. I stayed long enough to pay for both drinks and to back up the file to my phone, watching the progress bar inch forward because patience has a sound when it's digital. At 10:48, I texted Marianne the file's short code and the time window. Got it, she replied. Do not share yet. I won't, I said. He's on standby, she wrote. Who, I asked. Authority, she replied. Seated. At 11:02, a message from Luis came through. Heard Victor is upset. Anything I should know. I typed back. There's an admission at 10:41. Stand by. He replied with a single word. Copy. Walking home, the city felt like it was holding its breath. I replayed the audio once, not for satisfaction, but to check the clarity, the cadence, the way certainty sounds when it's borrowed. Victor's voice didn't waver when he claimed every inch. That steadiness is what makes it useful later. At 12:15, the unknown number rang again. I didn't answer. The voicemail came seconds later. We can still resolve this, Victor said, voice clipped. Call me. I saved it without listening twice. Patterns matter more than please. The recording slept in my pocket, waiting for the moment his certainty would need witnesses. The room was chosen for neutrality, not comfort, a municipal meeting space with stackable chairs, beige walls, and a ceiling fan that clicked once per rotation like it was keeping time for someone else. My immediate goal was not to speak. It was to let documents do what voices could not, without inviting argument. At 1:12 p.m., I set the projector remote on the table beside a laptop I didn't own, borrowed from the room, logged into nothing personal. We'll keep this brief, Luis said, standing near the door, posture open but alert. This is an informational review. Victor arrived at 1:14, eyes scanning for advantage, smile rehearsed but thin. What is this? He asked. A clarification, I replied. Say it again, he said. Clarification, I repeated, and didn't add anything else, because additions create seams. The projector hummed to life, a rectangle of white blooming on the wall, like a promise no one could interrupt. Before we begin, Victor said, I object to being recorded. No recording, Luis replied, just display. Victor nodded, relieved. He trusted displays. I pressed the remote once. The first slide appeared an email header enlarged mundane. Sender masked recipients generic subject line bland. Read the header, I said, not looking at Victor. Out loud. He scoffed. Why? So the room can hear, I replied. He leaned forward despite himself. From he read slower than he liked. To date. Time. Which time, I asked. He squinted. 11:02 a.m. Which day? Doesn't matter, he snapped. It does, I said. Say it again. He read it again louder. The date stayed safely generic, the time precise enough to anchor memory without inviting calendars. This proves nothing, Victor said. It proves consistency, I replied, with what he asked. I pressed the remote again. The second slide replaced the first with a thread view replies stacked like steps. Read the location tag, Luis said, surprising Victor. Out loud. Victor hesitated, then read. Front drive. At what time, Luis asked. 11:58. Victor said, and the number had weight now because it had been rehearsed by denial. That's the brunch, he added, defensive. Yes, I replied. And she wasn't authorized, Victor said, pointing at me. Authorized by whom? Luis asked. Victor opened his mouth, then closed it. By me, he said finally. Read the line where you say that, I replied. There is no line, he said. Then it's posture, I answered. Not paper. He laughed sharp. You think email headers outweigh ownership? They outweigh improvisation, I said. Press the next slide, Luis said. And I did. The third slide showed a cropped screenshot of an internal message. Names, masked times intact. Read the timestamp, I said. Out loud. Victor read it, jaw tight. 11:41 a.m. Who sent it? Luis asked. An assistant, Victor said. Which one? Doesn't matter, he snapped. It does, I replied. Say it again. He sighed. My assistant, he said. And what does it say? Luis asked. Victor read, voice flattening. Hold entry. Await confirmation. From whom I asked. He didn't answer. Say it again, I prompted. From me, he said, quieter. Thank you, I replied, and pressed the remote. The projected email locked his authority to a time he couldn't move. Victor stepped back like the wall had leaned forward. This is selective, he said. You're cherry-picking. We're sequencing, Luis replied. There's a difference. Victor turned to Luis. You're my head of security, he said. You work for me. I work for the site, Luis replied. And the site works for the records. Victor laughed again louder this time to recruit the room. No one joined him. The fan clicked. You're trying to embarrass me, he said, pointing at me. No, I replied. I'm trying to finish. Finish what he demanded. The sentence you started, I said. Press it, Luis said, nodding at the remote. The fourth slide appeared a side-by-side view email header on the left, access log excerpt on the right. Times aligned, locations matched. Read them together, Luis said. Victor's eyes darted. This isn't official, he said. It's internal, Luis replied, which means it's yours. Then you can't use it against me, Victor said. We're not, Luis said. We're using it to reconcile operations. Victor shook his head. You're all out of line. Lines are printed, I said, and reconciled. He looked at me like he wanted to say something that would feel good later but couldn't risk saying now. This is harassment, he said. By whom? Luis asked. By her, Victor said. Say it again, I told him. By her, he repeated. At what time? I asked. Now, he snapped. Good, I replied, because now is when this becomes boring. I pressed the remote again. The fifth slide was simple, a calendar block with generic labels times highlighted. Why are you showing this? Victor asked. Because it shows sequence, I replied. And sequence shows intent. You're inferring, he said. We're aligning, Luis corrected. Victor turned to Luis, voice rising. You don't get to do this. I do, Luis said. Because my incident logs don't match your instructions. Fix the logs, Victor ordered. I am, Luis replied. By correcting the instructions. Silence fell useful and thick. A woman in the back shifted in her chair. Someone cleared their throat. No one laughed now. Victor tried one last move. Even if all this is true, he said, spreading his hands, it doesn't change ownership. It changes credibility, I replied. Which changes who gets believed next. Believed by whom, he asked. By the people who read the next document, I said. He frowned. What document? I didn't answer. The projector fan whirred. Luis checked his watch. We're done, he said. For now. Victor stepped toward the table. Turn that off, he said, pointing at the screen. We are, Luis replied, and I clicked the remote. The wall went blank, the absence louder than the image had been. Victor stood there, hands on hips, searching for a door that would feel like control. This is a mistake, he said. Say it again, I replied. This is a mistake, he repeated, and the repetition weakened it. Luis opened the door. I'll be in touch, he said to Victor, when Victor demanded. After I reconcile the gate placements, Luis replied. And with whom? With the people who care about boundaries, Luis said and stepped aside. Victor walked past him, coat brushing the frame, not looking at me. The door closed with a sound that ended something. Afterward, I stayed long enough to pack the laptop and return the remote to the table because cleaning up reads as confidence. At 1:29, my phone buzzed with a message from Marianne. That was the turn. Don't accelerate, I replied. Understood. At 1:33, another from Victor. You're forcing my hand. I didn't respond. Hands reveal themselves when forced. Outside, the afternoon had softened the city ordinary again. I thought about how quickly rooms forget raised voices and how stubbornly they remember images. The screen went dark, and his certainty lost the room. I carried the USB drive in an evidence bag because containment matters when momentum tempts you to show your hand too early. The bag was clear. The seal numbered the label, handwritten with a ref code that meant nothing to anyone who didn't know where to look, and my immediate goal was narrow corner. Victor legally without triggering a public reaction that would let him claim ambush. We met in Marianne's office at 10:09 a.m. The windows frosted the table bare, except for a legal pad, and the drive resting between us like a pause. Before we plugged this in, Marianne said, "We agree on scope." "Say it again," I replied. "Scope defines safety," she said, "and safety defines timing." I nodded and slid the bag an inch forward. "What's on it?" I asked, though I already knew. "A deed extract," she said. "Masked identifiers. County pull. Time 9:42, she replied. Ref DL 8V. The clock ticked, and I prompted. "And a survey cross-reference," she added. "Enough to corner, not enough to provoke." "Good," I said. "We want inevitability, not fireworks." Victor arrived late, which told me he thought delay was leverage. "I don't have long," he said, not sitting. "You didn't have to come," Marianne replied. "I chose to," he snapped. "Why?" I asked. "Because this ends," he said. "Everything does," I replied, and he flinched, because repetition had become a mirror he didn't like. "What is this?" he asked, nodding at the bag. "Read the label," Marianne said. He squinted. "Evidence?" he scoffed. "You're dramatic." "We're precise," she replied. "Sit," I said. "Say it again," he shot back. "Sit," I repeated, and he did, jaw tight. Marianne broke the seal and slid the USB out, careful, deliberate. "We're not showing you everything," she said. "Just enough. Enough for what Victor asked." "For you to stop improvising," I replied. She plugged the drive into a laptop that never left the room. No Wi-Fi, no accounts. A folder opened. "Read the file name," Marianne said. Victor leaned in despite himself. "Deed extract masked.pdf." He read. "Date stamped," she said. 9:42. "Open it," he demanded. "We will," she replied. The first page filled the screen columns numbers, black bars where names should be a simple map inset at the corner. "Read the parcel number," I said. He read it voice flat. "Read the acreage," Marianne said. He did. "Read the boundary description," I said. He hesitated, then read slower now. "Now read the structure footprint note," Marianne said. Victor stopped. "This is doctored," he said. "Say it again," I replied. "This is doctored," he repeated louder. "By whom?" Marianne asked. "By you," he snapped. "At what time?" I asked. "I don't know," he said. "Then we'll use theirs?" Marianne replied, clicking to the metadata. The screen showed a creation time, a source system, a checksum. "Read it," she said. Victor read, then swallowed. "County," he muttered. "Say it again," I said. "County," he said quieter. He leaned back, searching for air. "Even if this is real," he said, "it doesn't change possession." "It changes standing," Marianne replied. "Which changes possession?" "You're splitting hairs," he said. "We're counting lines," I replied. Marianne scrolled to the inset map, the driveway crossing the darker boundary. "Read the legend," she said. He did. "Now read the note under the inset," I said. He read it once, then again. "Temporary structures require easement," he said. "Gate motors included," Marianne added. Victor looked up, eyes hard. "This stays here," he said. "You don't get to take it." "We already have," Marianne replied. "This is a copy." "Then I'll challenge it," he said. "You can," she replied. "After public proof." "There it is," he said, pointing at me. "You want to humiliate me?" "No," I replied. "I want to finish the sentence." He laughed sharp. "You think a USB drive scares me?" he asked. "It corners you," I replied. "There's a difference." He stood and paced the room too small for theater. "What do you want?" he asked finally. "Accuracy," I said. "And compliance." "Compliance with what?" "With the ground," I replied. Marianne closed the laptop. "We're done for today," she said. "You can leave." Victor scoffed. "You don't get to dismiss me," he said. "I just did," she replied. He leaned over the table. "If you take this public," he said, voice low, "I'll bury you in process." "Process is where this lives," I replied. "That's the problem." He straightened, smoothed his jacket, and smiled the way people do when they plan to deny later. "This isn't over," he said. "It never is," I replied. "Until it is." After he left, Marianne slid the USB back into the bag and resealed it with a new number. "You boxed him," she said. "Not yet," I replied. "We set the walls. He'll move," she said. "He always does." "Good," I replied. "We're ready." At 10:37, Louise texted council agenda posted. Public comment window Friday. I showed it to Marianne. She nodded. "That's your stage," she said. "Do nothing until then." "I can do nothing," I replied. "You've been doing it all week," she said. I smiled because patience had finally become active. I stepped outside into clean light and checked my phone once, then put it away. The USB rested in the bag like a quiet verdict, its numbers closing the space he'd been pacing. I walked home without hurry, the city ordinary again, knowing corners don't announce themselves. They just arrive. The drive sealed and his exits began to disappear. Hold steady for the next public window. The council chamber smelled faintly of disinfectant and old wood, a room designed to make voices sound smaller than records, and my immediate goal was simple. Place the truth where it could not be retracted. It was Friday, 6:02 p.m., and the agenda moved with municipal patient speakers called, in order timekeepers strict. I stood behind the glass podium, palms resting on its cool edge, and waited for my name to be read, because waiting reads as confidence when the room is public. Victor sat 3 rows back, jacket-perfect smile, practiced phone face down, as if restraint were a favor. Next, the clerk said, and I stepped forward. The microphone fixed the lights honest. "Please state your name," she said. "For the record," I replied and did, keeping it clean, keeping it boring. "You have 2 minutes." "That's enough," I said, and the timer started. "I'm here to reconcile a boundary," I began, voice steady, because steadiness turns heads faster than anger. Specifically, the boundary between the authority claimed at the front drive of the Hale estate and the authority recorded by the county. A murmur ran the benches the sound people make when a sentence promises proof. I lifted a single page from a folder and placed it on the podium, the seal visible the heading plain. "This is a county land record," I said, "pulled at 4:18 p.m. yesterday. Ref code C11A. Location tag, front drive. I paused because pauses are invitations the room accepts. Read the parcel number, the chair said. I read it. Read the acreage, she said. I read it. Read the boundary description, she said, and I did slowly because slowness prevents interruption. Victor shifted the smallest movement, but the glass podium kept my reflection and the document aligned, proof and posture sharing a frame. The chair leaned forward. "And your point?" she asked. "The gate motor and control arm installed at the Hale front drive sit beyond the recorded boundary," I said. "On land titled to my family trust." A phone rose. Another followed. The clerk glanced at the chair. "We'll need the record," she said. I slid the page forward. "Please project," the chair said, and the screen behind me lit up with the scanned image stamps, crisp times, legible identifiers masked. "Read the date," the chair said. "Read the source," she added. I read them both. "Any objection?" she asked the room. Victor stood. "Objection," he said. "This is selective and prejudicial." "On what grounds?" the chair asked. "Ownership is disputed," he said. "Then read the record," she replied, out loud. Victor hesitated, then read, voice flattening as the room leaned in. The words did their work without me. The county seal glows on the screen, and the room learns whose ground the gate obeys. The chair nodded to the clerk. "Enter into record," she said. "Any further documentation?" "Yes," I replied, placing a second page beside the first. The same source, different angle. "Supplemental survey note," I said. "Pulled concurrently. Timestamp matches." The clerk took it. "Any objection?" the chair asked again. Victor opened his mouth, then closed it because objections need footholds and the ground had been named. Seeing none, the chair said, "The record reflects the boundary." A low sound moved the benches, not applause, something heavier. The chair looked at Victor. "Mr. Hale," she said, "you operate the gate." "Yes," he replied. "Then you'll coordinate with staff to suspend operation pending compliance," she said. "This is not punitive, it's procedural." Victor's smile broke at the edges. "We'll comply," he said. When the chair asked. "Immediately," he said, and the word finally matched a clock. Luis stood at the sidewall, clipboard in hand, posture straight. "For clarity," he said, "we'll deactivate the gate control within the hour and reroute access to the compliant drive." "Make it so," the chair said. "And provide confirmation." "Yes," Luis replied. Victor turned toward him sharp. "We'll discuss," he said. "You'll log it," Luis replied, and the difference mattered. The chair tapped her gavel once, not for drama, but to close a loop. "Next speaker," she said, and the room exhaled because the work had moved from voice to file. I stepped back from the podium and returned to my seat, the glass cool where my hands had been, my reflection now empty. Victor remained standing a beat too long, then sat phone lighting as messages arrived. He could not answer fast enough. A woman 2 rows ahead turned and met my eyes. Nodded once the nod. People give when they've been convinced without needing to know you. The clerk leaned toward the chair. "Authority notification," she asked quietly. The chair nodded. After confirmation, she said. Minutes later, an officer entered, not urgent, not theatrical, a uniform worn like a tool. He spoke with the clerk, then with Luis, then wrote something down. No one pointed. No one raised a voice. That's how authority looks when it waits its turn. Victor stood again. "This is being mishandled," he said loud enough to recruit sympathy. "Sir," the chair replied, "you've been heard. I demand, sit," she said. And he did, because the word carried weight now. The officer approached him, not touching, just close enough. "We'll need access to the control panel," he said. "Now," Victor asked. "Now," the officer replied, and the repetition made it final. The officer nodded to Luis. "We're coordinating," Luis said. Victor's jaw tightened, but he nodded, because nodding is what people do when options close. The podium clears, the seal remains, and authority enters only after truth finishes speaking. The chair glanced my way once more. "Thank you for bringing the record," she said. "This concludes the matter for today." I nodded back because gratitude belongs to the process, not the person. As the room shifted and chairs scraped, I stood and left without hurry because exits matter as much as entrances. In the hallway, the officer passed me again, phone to ear. "Control deactivated," he said to someone unseen. "Confirm rewrote." A soft click echoed from somewhere distant in my memory. A gate, learning a new instruction. Outside, dusk softened the building's edges, the city returning to itself. My phone buzzed once, then again. I didn't check it. The glass podium would remember the page without me. The county would remember the stamp without my voice. Victor would remember the moment the room stopped needing him to explain. I walked to my car and paused, listening to the ordinary sounds: traffic laughter, a bus sighing at a stop, proof that public spaces absorb truth and keep going. The ground had been named. Everything else was logistics. Next, the paper does the walking. The enforcement arrived the way it should, without urgency, without theater, because procedure doesn't need an audience once the record is set. I received the call at 8:06 a.m., a clerk's voice calm, confirming the issuance, and asking where the hard copy enforcement notice should be delivered. "Serve it at the site," I said. "Front drive." "Time," she asked. As soon as the logs allow, I replied and hung up because the sentence was complete. By 9:22, I stood across the street from the estate public pavement, hands empty, watching the morning arrange itself. A county vehicle idled near the curb door, closed, engine quiet, and Louise stood by the gate booth with a clipboard posture neutral. Victor emerged from the house at 9:27, jacket on phone pressed to his ear, walking the driveway as if pace could argue with ink. "You can't do this," he said to someone unseen. "This is harassment." He stopped when he saw the vehicle, when he recognized the shade of official beige that means no one is here to negotiate. The officer stepped out, folder in hand, seal visible through the clear sleeve. "Mr. Hale?" he asked. Victor turned, smile assembling itself from habit. "Yes," he said. "What's this about compliance?" the officer replied. "Read the notice," Victor said. Out loud, I added, not stepping closer because distance keeps voices honest. The officer cleared his throat and read the header, then the directive, then the deadline, each clause landing where it belonged. "Effective immediately," he read, and Victor's jaw tightened because immediately ignores plans. Victor took the notice paper, thicker than denial, the seal catching light. "This is premature," he said. "You've already been heard," the officer replied. "Now we execute." Luis nodded once, a small motion with consequences, and marked the time on his clipboard. "Gate control remains deactivated," he said. "Reroute confirmed." Victor looked at him. "We'll discuss your role in this," he said. "We will log it," Luis replied, and the correction mattered. A delivery truck slowed, driver craning to see. A jogger paused. A phone lifted. Victor noticed and straightened, performance reflex kicking in. "There's been a misunderstanding," he announced, projecting calm. "We're cooperating fully." "Please do," the officer said, and held out a pen. "Signature acknowledges receipt." Victor hesitated, then signed the ink dark, the motion clipped. "There," he said. "Happy. Accurate." The officer replied and slid the pen back into his pocket. The gate did not move, and that stillness felt heavier than motion. A technician arrived at 9:41 with a tool bag, eyes down, greeting no one, and checked the control panel while Luis watched. "We'll need to remove the motor housing," the technician said. "Temporary," Victor snapped. "Until compliant placement," Luis replied. Which is where Victor asked. "On your side," Luis said, and pointed without flourish. The technician nodded and began bolts loosening with a sound like a held breath releasing. Victor paced, phone lighting and dimming messages, stacking like sandbags that wouldn't stop the water. "This is absurd," he said to me finally, crossing the distance he'd been careful to keep. "You've made your point." "No," I replied. "The paper did." "You wanted to humiliate me," he said. "You wanted witnesses," I answered. "I wanted records." He laughed brittle. "You think this is over? It's executed," I replied. "Different thing." The notice rested in his hands like a weight he couldn't shift, procedure pressing down without raising its voice. The technician finished and stepped back. "Control disabled," he said. Luis checked the panel and marked the time. The officer nodded. "We'll verify reroute signage," he said. "And follow up. Follow up when Victor asked. After confirmation, the officer replied and turned away because authority doesn't linger when it's done its work. The county vehicle pulled out unhurried. A woman across the street clapped once, then stopped herself, embarrassed by relief. The jogger resumed. Ordinary life stitched itself back together. Victor stood alone at the edge of his driveway, notice folded now a crease forming where certainty used to live. "You didn't have to do it this way," he said, quieter. "This way exists," I replied. "You ignored it." He shook his head. "You could have talked to me." "I did," I said. "At 10:41. He looked away, the reference landing because numbers stick. "What do you want now?" he asked. "Compliance," I replied, and silence. "Silence," he echoed. From me, I clarified. "The rest can speak for itself." He exhaled long. "You think you've won," he said. "This isn't a game," I replied. "It's maintenance." Luis approached clipboard tucked under his arm. "Signage will be up by noon," he said. "Temporary access rerouted." "Make it clean," I said. "Always," he replied, and there was no triumph in it, only relief that logs would finally match geography. Victor watched us exchange the words and understood too late how power shifts when it chooses accuracy over volume. "I'll appeal," he said, reflexive. "You can?" I replied. "After compliance." He folded the notice again, tighter. "Get off my property," he said, habit flaring. "I'm on the sidewalk," I answered, and the truth had the courtesy to be boring. As the morning moved on, workers arrived to set temporary cones, orange bright against stone, the driveway learning a new choreography. A reporter lingered at the curb, notebook out. "Any comment?" she asked. "The record speaks," I replied, and kept walking because commentary dilutes conclusions. Victor stayed by the gate booth phone, finally quiet, watching people navigate around the cones as if he were seeing the place for the first time. The house looked the same, the ground did not. Paper finished the work, and the gate learned to wait where it belonged. Everything that followed was logistics, emails sent, confirmations logged, a calendar invite declined. I didn't stay to watch the rest. I walked until the street changed names and the light shifted until the morning felt like any other. Execution is unglamorous. That's the point. The matter moved from voice to file. I return in the present tense because endings deserve daylight, and the day is clear enough to make the ordinary feel earned. The venue keycard is warm from my pocket when I slide it from its sleeve, the stripe catching light as if it remembers how often permission was borrowed instead of granted. The entrance is quiet, no cameras pointed, no radios crackling, just a door that opens because it should, because the line beneath it finally agrees with the ground. I pause not for ceremony, but to listen for resistance that never arrives, and when I press the card to the reader, the green light blinks without argument. The door opens on its hinge, with the smallest sigh, the kind that sounds like relief, and I step through, because stepping through is different now. It's not defiance or performance, it's alignment. Inside, the air holds the neutral smell of cleaned floors and yesterday's decisions, the way public spaces smell when they've done their work and moved on. I walk the short corridor at a measured pace, noticing details I ignored before the scuff at knee height, where carts pass the faint echo near the corner, because attention returns when pressure leaves. A staff member passes and nods, once not deferential, not curious, just factual. And that nod matters more than applause would have because it says, the threshold no longer needs explaining. The room opens into light tables arranged for the next agenda chairs stacked neatly, the glass podium stored off to the side like a tool returned to its shelf. I don't touch it. I don't need to. My goal now is maintenance, not memory. I take a seat near the wall and let the quiet settle, and in that quiet, I notice how the absence of Victor's voice has weight not as a victory, but as a correction. The space holds without him filling it, which tells me everything I need to know about what authority is when it's not mistaken for volume. I check the time because clocks still matter, 10:11 a.m., and write it on the back of an old agenda sheet because writing keeps me honest even when no one is watching. A phone buzzes once in my bag, then stops. I don't reach for it because the present doesn't require commentary. I walk back toward the entrance and stop at the doorway, turning to look at the line where inside becomes outside the place that taught me patience by forcing me to wait. The shadow falls differently now, softer, because the gate beyond it learned where to stand. The doorway stands open, empty of borrowed authority, and the light finally knows where to land. I let that sentence sit without decoration, then step back into the hall because lingering is another kind of claim and I don't need it. Outside, the street sounds normal tires, voices a bus sighing at the corner, and normal is a gift when it arrives on time. I cross to the sidewalk and notice the cones are gone, the temporary signs replaced by permanent ones that say less because they mean more. A technician finishes tightening a bolt at the compliant drive and wipes his hands on a rag, nodding to no one in particular. Work finished doesn't look for witnesses. I think about the weeks that taught me what quiet can do when it's deliberate, how patience becomes leverage when it's paired with paper and clocks. I don't think about Victor not out of generosity but accuracy. He's already been filed, and files don't argue. The ground remains what it was before any of us arrived, indifferent to posture, loyal to ink. I walk the block once more, not to check anything, just to feel the ordinary cadence of steps that aren't measured against a line. At the corner I stop and look back, because looking back is allowed when it isn't longing and the building looks like any other civic place, useful, forgettable, correct. I slide the keycard back into its sleeve and into my pocket, not because I need to keep it safe, but because objects that did their job deserve rest. I know I won't use it often. Access is less interesting when it's legitimate. A woman passes with a stack of flyers and smiles, the kind of smile that doesn't ask for context, and I return it because courtesy is easier when it's not transactional. The phone buzzes again, one message this time, and I glance a short note from Marianne confirming a filing completed, a line closed. I type back one word, received, and put the phone away. Completion doesn't require conversation. As I head toward my car, I notice the curb cut where the sidewalk meets the drive, the subtle slope designed to make movement easier, and I laugh quietly at how design does what power pretends to do. The laugh surprises me because it isn't sharp. It's light as sound without edges. I tap the keycard against my palm, and the door opens because truth doesn't need permission anymore. The sentence feels true even as the day moves on, which is how I know the ending has arrived without needing to announce itself. I unlock my car, sit and take a breath that doesn't rush, the kind you take when there's nothing left to prove. I drive away, not fast, not slow, letting traffic set the pace, because pacing is a communal act now, not a negotiation. At the first light, I stop and watch the crosswalk count down numbers, steady, impartial, and I smile again, because numbers never cared who owned the house, they only cared about being right. When the light turns, I go carrying nothing with me that needs defending. The city absorbs the moment and keeps going, which is exactly what it should do. The threshold did its work, the door learned its hinge, and the ground, patient as ever, keeps the record without saying a word. The day doesn't end. It simply continues, and so do I, unremarkable in the best possible way. The doorway remains open, and I don't need to stand in it to know why.